Oh, sorry, you startled me. Do you guys know that Christianity is true? And I don't mean just like, yeah, it's this thing that I say that's true. No, it is actually true. Evidentially, historically, it's true. Christianity is true. You know, that's something I say a lot on this channel, by the way. Christianity is true.
Of course, I disagree that Christianity is evidentially and historically accurate, meaning that it comports with reality. Evidentially and historically, that is not the case. So, Cameron, what are we discussing today?
I'm Cameron Bertuzzi, and the video that you're about to watch features an in-depth discussion between myself and two experts on the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus.
Oh, experts, you say? The video title suggests that we are talking about the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, so I can only assume that you have two historical experts that you're talking to.
One of them has been on the show before, Callum Miller, Dr. Callum Miller. Doctor, not in just the sense that he's got a PhD and stuff, but he also is actually a medical doctor.
Oh, so not a historical expert. He's a medical doctor that occasionally researches biblical topics to advance his apologetics and his evangelism. Got it. Maybe this other guy is an expert in history.
But Max, you're new to the show, so tell everyone, what should we know about you, Max? And first of all, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Baker Heitch.
Baker Height. Okay. I just tried to do your accent. Baker Height. Okay. Awesome.
Right.
So what should we know about you, Max?
I'm a lecturer in philosophy at Wycliffe Hall, which is part of the University of Oxford. So I did my PhD in philosophy at Oxford, finished in 2014.
So he's not an expert either. You see, I'm rather confused by this because your title suggests that they are scholars, and then you introduce them as experts in the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus, but yet they're not experts in history. Unless you define expert as just somebody who has spent a reasonable amount of time researching the issue. If that's the case, then I too am an expert with an unrelated advanced degree. Good thing that we're on the same level here, because otherwise it would be a non-historian arguing with a historian, which I really have no problem with. But at least now you can't throw it in my face that I'm not an expert in this field. So, what kind of historiography do these non-historian experts bring to the table?
Yeah, I think one thing that's often, comes as a shock to people who haven't been exposed to the study of ancient history before is just that it's actually very normal in the study of ancient history for a source which is regarded as very reliable by professional historians to have been written several decades after the events that it recounts. So I think sometimes in sort of more popular level online expressions of skepticism about the resurrection or just the Gospels more generally, you have people demanding, sources that were written at the time of the events, which is understandable from the point of view of, modern day expectations, when obviously we have newspapers that are written the next day about events. But actually in the ancient world, most people couldn't read and write, and also people had to be much more proficient at retaining information without being able to write it down. And so ancient historians are unfazed by having to deal with sources that are written from our point of view a long time after the events.
Actually, obtaining contemporaneous eyewitness accounts is the goal of a historian. More specifically speaking, historians rely on the earliest accounts that we can have. These two experts are painting historical sources as generally occurring decades after the event or person supposedly existed. This is not indicative of what actually goes on in historiography. Generally speaking, historians that are given sources that are dated decades after the supposed person or event happened, they would want to know what source that source is using. It could be something that's not extant to us now, but that they have access to. Take Alexander the Great, for instance. Now, Arrian, who is considered to have the best history on Alexander the Great, had access to eyewitness sources that we don't have access to now. These eyewitness sources would have been two of Alexander the Great's generals. While Arrian was writing hundreds of years later, the sources he was using were eyewitness sources. So no, we don't just expect contemporaneous eyewitness accounts for things that are closer to modern times. We also expect this quality of evidence when examining ancient history. They mention how not everybody could read and write at this point in history, but all we're asking is that the people that could read and write would read and write about things that were happening while they were living. That's not really a big ask. It's a much bigger ask to expect those accounts to be preserved through time. They also mention how people were more proficient with their memory at that point, but that doesn't really help us either. We would still expect these historical sources to cite sources that were contemporaneous or eyewitness accounts. The key point here is that we want as close to contemporaneous eyewitness accounts as we can get. If the document was written during the supposed time of the eyewitnesses, then we should expect to see those eyewitnesses being cited.